Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of HR to CHRO podcast. And today we have Mr. Abhishek Misra with us, who started his career in operations in GlaxoSmithKline, and then he did his MBA, and then he joined the same organization in HR as an HR manager. Then he was AVP with TCS, with Tata's. Then he was assistant director with Quintiles, and then within 10 years of joining HR, starting his career in HR, he became the head HR in Novartis. Then he was head HR at Shell, and currently he is head HR and LCS for Asia Pac at Rockwell. So thank you, Abhishek. Thanks for giving us time.
Thanks a lot for inviting me here, Amit. And it's really a pleasure to be here in the podcast run by you and Kushalta team.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhishek. So, see, so many of CHROs, HR heads we have been interacting with, many of them did not start their career directly from HR domain. They started either in operations, in business development, some in sales also. And looking at your remarkable journey where you became a HR head within 10 years of joining HR, is there a correlation when you don't start directly from HR?
Yeah. So good question. And I think very close to my heart. Many people ask me, how come you made this transition, starting on the shop floor and then moving on to HR side. I would say there are some, correlations, some coincidences, and I would also say it's about some smart people and leaders that you are in the company of, right? And that always, has an impact, right? So just to, take you through my background, and as you rightly said, Amit, I completed my graduation, my BTech in a very, I would say, non-traditional field, which was BTech in dairy technology from a place called National Dairy Research Institute, and got an opportunity to work with GlaxoSmithKline in one of their plants, and this was a completely shop floor role, right, where I started. My early years, of course, in the shop floor there, and then also did a stint as part of the commissioning team when GSK was setting up a greenfield site. And I think some of those instances, particularly when I was, working as part of the commissioning team, gave me an opportunity to really expand and my scope and work beyond what maybe a traditional operations or a production person would work. And that exposed me, to a network of people, and many of them were, some smart and great, I would say, HR professionals and leaders. And so early during that time, when the green field site was being set up, commissioning was happening, I was working, very closely with really building up and hiring the blue collared workforce. And this was going to be a, technologically savvy plant, so we were trying to get workforce which was tech savvy. So there I was very closely working with, the HR teams, and we were scanning the length and breadth of India to get the best of the talent. The other piece, I, along with the team, was trying to set up the organization structure of the production side of the plant. And that again, the SOPs, production structure, that again, made me work closely with the HR fraternity. And also developing, the training modules, the technical training modules, where also, I was working with experts as well as HR team in terms of, how best to facilitate these programs. And I think somewhere that brush beyond my traditional operations portfolio to looking at other things and getting exposed to a larger network of people, particularly HR folks, I think, my interest towards HR ignited. I always wanted to, at some point of time, do a postgraduate, MBA. And the reason of choosing HR, I think, somewhere solidified during, those times. And as I look back, as you said, there's definitely correlation. I completed my HR and then came back in the HR team of the same plant which I was once commissioning, and I could very well relate with the teams. Not only the teams, the processes, and I think, genuinely understood the challenges, and also I think, would really be able to wear the hat maybe of my stakeholder while proposing a solution. And that, I think, I would say gave me an edge, because I would not just think like an HR professional, but also think like, hey, putting myself in the shoes of, say, the operations or the production guy, which I actually used to be once. And that gave me, I think, one, ability to understand, decipher challenges, and propose solutions which were practical solutions rather than, maybe more bookish ones. And that was one. But I think the biggest thing was, I think it gave me a very strong ability to connect with people on the shop floor side, because maybe I can say I was one amongst them at one point of time,
Correct.
and they saw me, one amongst them who has moved over to the other side of the fence. So I think that helped. And yeah, I mean, there was no looking back. And I always, see that, that early grooming, I think, in the operations or production really, really helped, where I am today, right? And I always suggest to youngsters that, when you get into some higher level of professional things, try to understand the fundamentals, the business. If you're on a in an FMCG organization, try to understand, how you make products, how you market products, what is your GTM, go to market strategy, because those fundamentals, and then you move to management roles. I think those very fundamentals, one, will help you earn trust with your stakeholders, because they will know that you are coming from a place having done that yourself even before suggesting, solutions to them. So I think that's one, advice I would like to,
Very
give
nice.
youngsters, of
Very
today.
nice.
And the other piece is also, I think one thing I would like to add, Amit, I think there were many leaders around me at that point of time who
Hmm.
trusted me and who backed me, right? And so when I was choosing to maybe, get raise my hand for this commissioning team project, it was an internal opening amongst many people who applied.
Hmm.
There were leaders who chose me. I had, very little experience. There were many other experienced folks, but they chose me because they saw something. They supported me, right? They supported talent that point of time. When I was trying to switch from operations into HR to do my MBA, there were leaders who supported, those things. So the point is, I think as leaders also, we need to really think very broad-minded and think about, how are we contributing to developing the talent of future, right? And I think a lot of leadership work, transformational leadership work that I know Kushalta does, right, Amit, I'm sure will help leaders, really broad base in one of the biggest roles that leaders have, which is about creating talent of future. And I think I got the best of it, in my early years, I can say.
So very nice. So very nice of you, Abhishek. It raises some very interesting points that the ability to put yourself in the shoes of the other person in the other department, whether operations, sales, that empathy is very important. Maybe for not only in HR, in every department, because but more so in HR. But I'll come to that. Before that, see you very interestingly you mentioned that you had an or what I could decipher is that you had an open mind to take up bigger responsibilities. And there was an internal opening where you applied to go into a challenging role where nobody would know. You know, it's a greenfield site and highly technological, and you would have to be stretching yourself, but you were open minded enough to take that risk and early in your career where the chances of failure would be higher, because you're not so can we have some thoughts about that also, that ability to have open mindedness to take those risks?
No, absolutely. And I mean, there's a small anecdote I would like to share with that. Thanks for, bringing me back to my old memory lane. So what really happened when this internal, I was in the production plant, right, working, and there was this internal job which was posted about the commissioning team of this greenfield site which was going to come up. And I saw that, and the first thought that came, pretty much, in line with what you said, it's good, I'm going fine. Let me kind of stabilize here. That's a new environment, more risk. And maybe that's one. And second, the thing about self doubt, maybe there are much more qualified people who might be more eligible. So why try? Right? And I didn't apply. Last day of the application, and I very clearly remember, I can actually photographically think back about that. I was in the shift, which used to usually end at about 2 p.m. and we used to call that morning shift. But I was extending. I had some work, so I was there till in the evening. In the evening, around 5 o'clock, I somebody walks up and says, "Hey, the head of production, he wants to meet you. Can you go, meet him in his office?" And so the immediate thought, when somebody very senior calls up for you, that I hope nothing has got
I
wrong.
haven't done any
All those
mistake.
doubts. Yeah, I mean, early in career, if somebody very senior, calls upon you, always start having. So I said, okay. And I walked into his office. So he usually asks, hey, the usual questions of, how's the production, this, quick report and all that. And then he asked, hey, did you apply for that internal posting which came? So I said, no, sir. I thought maybe there will be much more qualified people. I'm just about hardly 2 years experienced. So he said, Ki, boss, what's the harm in applying and at least getting the experience of that? I mean, you get selected or not selected, it's secondary, but try to have an experience of the whole process, right? What stops you from doing that? So I mean, he was saying, so I said, okay, sure. He immediately called up the head of HR. He said, hey, I'm just sending Abhishek to the HR department. I know it's the last day, but I've asked him to apply for that. Can you help him out? I went and applied and all that. And then I actually forgot about it, right? And it was after a month that I get a call that, hey, there's this, you had applied for this and there's an interview which is set up and the interview will be in person in our headquarters. So, by the way, I was in a plant in Punjab that point of time, and the headquarters was in Gurgaon, and they had company had moved to a brand new headquarters. And he said, so and so date, you have to be there for the interview, so make your plans and all that. So I was more than for the interview, I was more, excited about the fact that I'll get to see the
New
new,
office.
brand new office, the talk of the town, and people in the shop floor and production hardly get to see that. So my excitement was that. But coming back to the point, I think the thing is sometimes, there are people around you, leaders around you who believe more than you do in yourself, right?
Correct.
Always, I think, pay heed to what some of those people, give you as a direction. There's always risk in anything you do. But I think it's always worth taking the risk because unless you take the risk, you don't even know what is on that side. Maybe the risk is your perception. Maybe, the things are much more, brighter. They might suddenly open up many new doors for you.
Correct.
The thing is to have much more risk appetite. Second, to be always open to feedback, right? And third is to never shy away from failures, right? So if I look back, one of the reasons I was not applying because maybe I will fail. I had self doubt. Maybe there are more people qualified. So I think the thing is never have that self doubt, have the risk appetite, believe in the people who are supporting you, be ready to feedback, and be open to fail and learn from that failure and see that how you should not repeat that
Very nice.
mistake, right? So I think those were some of the learnings I would say out of that incident. But you really took me back the memory lane.
But see, again, this is a very interesting point, Abhishek. See, mentors and people, leaders who guide us are very important. But how do you impress those people, those mentors, that they go that extra mile to help you? Now, you said very interestingly that your shift ended at 2 p.m., but you were still in the plant till 5 p.m., doing something or other beyond your normal KRAs or KPIs or your normal tasks. That would have impressed the plant head, and he had the grace to call you. So again, some more on how do you impress it, because there are so many youngsters,
Hmm.
and like it is said that in Gen Z, it is they have a different work culture altogether. You know, the different way of looking at things. But to that means that to impress mentors, prospective mentors, has become easier because most of the crowd is not that serious, maybe, you know. So some thoughts on that, how to impress those mentors in the initial period of your career.
No, very good point. I think couple of things I would say. One, I think, there are no shortcuts to success,
Correct.
right? In being diligent, really, work hard, and everybody have, different capacity to do that, but, never ever take shortcuts, be diligent. That's one. Second, I think discipline. You may not be the smartest person around. There are many people smart around, but be disciplined in what you do. If and it can be about whatever. You have made a commitment, be disciplined about keeping that. You have a time, you have given some deliverable, and you have to commit to a time. Make sure you do that. If you're not able to do, make sure you let the person know that this reason you need more time, whatever, right? So discipline is very important. Consistency, right? I would say, I mean, so people should see you, and that consistency brings trust. I'll tell you how. Because if you're consistent and people say that, hey, I have told Abhishek, I know he will definitely come back with an answer, if not fully baked in, at least something, right? So if they consistently see you doing that, they see you as reliable. And if they see you as reliable, they see you as trustworthy. That is
Correct.
where trust builds, right? So I think that's another thing. A few other things, as I said, don't shy away from taking risk, and also never ever shy away from speaking up and asking things if you don't know. A lot of times, I've seen, and I don't blame youngsters, maybe I have also gone through that. It's not easy in a room full of people to ask something, because you have so many doubts in mind. What if it is a dumb question? What if I get typecast? What will others think of me? No, I think, you know, you have to take that, and by speaking up, you are not only clarifying the doubt that you have in yourself, but I think you are showing leadership, because everybody has those fears. Many people may have that same question in mind, but many will not, have the courage or leadership to go and ask. If you have done that, you have shown that courage, you have shown that leadership. I think that's important. And end of the day, I think one more thing, right? As I said, be open to take risk. I think one of my boss and another, in a different organization used to call that, hey, baptism by fire. So he used to say, and I remember, when I joined that organization, there was some turmoil happening. And so, very initial 1 or 2 days, he met up with me and said, hey, Abhishek, all, things, are you settled in? You got your, gadgets, joining in, everything, formalities happened. Okay. And then he said, hey, I'll now brief you. There are a few, critical things happening. And then he told me, and I was like, okay, so now this is what I'm getting into. But he said, Abhishek, I'll tell you, baptism by fire are some of the best moments to learn. You really, the learnings which might otherwise take, time or may not be best delivered, are best delivered when you actually get into the core of it. And he used to call it baptism of fire. And that's where I learned that, you have to sometimes jump into the fire to really douse it and learn, how best to navigate through that. So that's important, baptism of fire, or other way of looking at it is, be ready to take risks.
Correct.
So yeah, I think those are a few things I would say.
Very nice, very nice. And you have been very honest and candid about the sharing these experiences, Abhishek. So, speaking up again, Some more thoughts on this. If you could share some example from your career where this ability to speak up helped you, and how to do we have to take care of the culture of the organization before we do that? Maybe in some Indian companies, you have to think before you speak up, or how to go about it.
Yeah, I think, see, one first thing, speaking up is important. Yes, I agree with you. Sometimes you also need to keep in mind the context. And context maybe, what forum you are speaking on. What is the culture of the organization? And so hence your speaking up or the style of speaking up may get modulated a bit, right? And I think each context and each maybe culture may have different, but always find your way to speak up or bring about your thoughts, right? I think that's important. Now, for me, I think, yeah, and I can, talk of, some example, where I kind of, spoke up or, when I needed help. And so I remember, one of the, and so in my career, in one of the roles, I was leading talent acquisition. This was in Quintiles, right, which is a clinical research organization. And at one point of time, we were onboarding a client, right? And so basically, Quintiles used to do clinical research on behalf of our pharmaceutical clients. So we were at one point of time getting a client who wanted to hire a whole set of doctors, and I hadn't done it in ever in lifetime. Neither my team had done. Now, but I was excited about this, right? It was something new, but I already also had this question mark that I haven't forayed into that ever, neither anybody in the team. And what should I do? And I think one of the things which I did was I straight away went to my, head or my manager, which was who was the Asia Pacific head of talent acquisition, and told him, "Boss, I'm excited about this. This will give me new opportunity to expose, get visibility, not only to me but my team also. But I haven't done this ever in the past, and nobody in the team has. And I would need your support in doing this." And I think, to tell you frankly, it took me a bit of courage to do that. It's not
Correct.
easy going to a
Correct.
boss saying that, "Hey, sorry, I don't know this. I haven't
Correct.
done this." I mean, we always have all the question marks, what will he perceive and all. But again, I think because I think I was very upfront and candid, right? And the other piece is my manager, I think, was one, again, one of the many leaders who have shaped me, who am I. He was one of them. He really wholeheartedly said, "Hey, Abhishek, we are in it together."
Very
I
nice.
think that first sentence, that we are in it together, really, really gave a lot of relief. Saying that, he has not judged me, saying, "Hey," he's coming me and telling me that, I haven't done this, right? Cutting a sorry face, but he's asking help. And he could actually maybe figure out that I'm a little apprehensive about it. And so immediately build my confidence saying, "Hey, Abhishek, we are in it together."
Very nice.
And he then coached me how to go about it, right? And I think with that coaching, I got my team together. We built, the go-to plan, which got reiterated a couple of times. But I think there was no looking back after that. And I think one sentence which made the difference was, "Abhishek, we are in it together."
Very nice.
That confidence, right? And so I always see, and I'm sure, again, Amit, in Kushalta, that's one of the things that you help the leaders and visionaries to build up, is how to really support the teams and get the best out of the teams, even in the most, I would say, unfavorable of circumstances, right? And sometimes the way leader behaves can make or break teams.
Very nice.
So that's what I would
Thank you.
say.
Thank you, Abhishek. But again, so you must have impressed your manager, right? Because he would have been impressed by your hard work or your sincerity in the past. That is why he knew that when you are coming out with this statement, you are being honest about it. And so you would have impressed him earlier. is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would say that, I was diligent, I was very disciplined, and so I think, he really held me in high street. I mean, and so of course, when I came back, he genuinely understood that, I had a challenge, and I needed support.
Very
So I
nice.
would definitely say, yeah, I think,
So
those things.
to all the young listeners, that diligence and that discipline is very very important to help you navigate those challenges. But again, I wanted to ask something else, but I'll stick to this point because it's very raises a very interesting point again, Abhishek. Um, See how to navigate office politics. Now there are two sides to it. One
Mhm.
way is in case I'm not diligent, in case I'm not disciplined, in case I'm not hardworking, maybe I look at every situation as full with politics, for example,
Mm,
and it
mm,
might not be there at all. It is my vision of, it is my way of looking at the things. But on the other hand, in some small cases, it might actually be a challenge. It might actually be a problem, which might be there. So how do I let go of this faulty paradigm that I have, that there I may be putting names to things, situations where it might be just normal things which might be happening. It's my way of looking. So how do I get rid of that? One. Second, in case there is actually a problem, then how do I navigate that?
mm.
A young HR professional.
Yeah. So I think it took some time for me to form my own, model around this and how to navigate such situations. But I think two things. One, I think whenever you are in a catch 22 kind of situation, you might think that, this might be a political minefield, whether or not to raise this or not. I think one is do your homework first of all, whatever you know of very well, right? Try to, and I think that is where your friends, buddies, within the company, outside, they help. So always try to have that network of people whom you can just go. So try to gather as much you can, try to do your homework, right? Two things. One, you know, whoever you go and ask about, you may not fully know the things, but you gather some homework and you tell him that, hey, I don't know this, but I have tried to gather this. First things, it shows your intent to the other person, saying that, this person is genuinely trying to, he didn't come to me empty handed with a blank slate, but he did his or her homework, pretty much collated whatever information could, and then came up to me, right? So that shows intent that, he's positively inclined to really work towards that and all, right? That's one. Second is, I think, when you have done all that homework, go with all full genuineness, right? If you still do not know the things, do not pretend that, you have figured it out. Be clear that this is what I have collected, this is what my understanding, I'm not sure. This area, I have no clue at all, right? So this is where I need help. So I think genuineness in being very clear with whom you're seeking help of, what you know or you do not know. I think that helps because people see you can't fake. You know, people around you or leaders who are so experienced can really see through you. They can
Correct.
figure out if you're faking it or
Correct.
are you genuine, right? And that makes the difference, right? If you did your homework, shows your diligence, right? If you upfront are candid, right, shows your genuineness. And they then kind of, frame out that you are somebody who really wants to work on this, are very genuine about it. And I think, any inhibition will get dropped,
Very
right?
nice.
But the other thing is that, so that's one thing, part of the model. Do your part of it, right? The other thing, after you've done all this, you may still not be sure, right? And one, thing which I get reminded, and I used to see that in my school days on the NCRT, the first page you open, there used to be a talisman of Gandhiji used to be there. It says, do your best and do not worry about, the outcome, because after you've done your best, do not worry and leave the outcome, there. So I get guided by a talisman, that, after you have done your best, made all your efforts, do not really worry about the outcome, because that will unnecessarily confuse your brain. You have done whatever you could, and then leave rest to the powers that be. And I think so. That's the second part of it. Talisman, which always drives me. After I have done everything, and I still have worries, I say, let's go into it. We'll see what will happen. I have
Very
done
nice.
from my side. I'm clear in my heart. I have put in my best, right? And rest, right, let us leave it, for the future or what comes.
So very powerful, Abhishek. In fact, the ability to not overthink, this is so powerful because in the current world that we are living in with social media, with Instagram and with Facebook and all these platforms, everybody is continuously being judged, and most of us, we have started overthinking before every action. How will
Yeah.
this action be perceived? So from social media action that will I get likes to now in the real life also. And this is again, I mean, so many during our sessions. So people come and tell me that my boss gave me a negative feedback and I got anxiety attacks or panic attacks, or after that again that habit of overthinking. So it is so very powerful. I think the young listeners who would be listening this, even if they take away this one takeaway, that the ability to not overthink, this is so very powerful, Abhishek.
Absolutely. I think sometimes we complicate our lives by unnecessarily overthinking. So
Correct.
yeah.
All right. So, see, would you like to share any example on this, on how doing your homework helped you navigate a complex situation and gave you lots of learnings also? In case you remember, without taking the name of the organization, maybe.
Yeah, I think I can, take some example from one of the organizations that I worked with. So this was, so what we were trying to do was we are trying to really integrate the
Mm-hmm.
business across multiple countries into one, business unit, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was earlier, separate business units. And one of the things was to craft out whole, I would say, internal communication strategy for the
Mm-hmm.
combined organization. And again, for me, because this were a couple of countries beyond India, and my first exposure beyond that, so I was really not aware that what are some of the nuances in terms of communication. How do people best get absorb things, right? So to me, I think I did understand the mechanics of communication. Want to ask me to develop an internal communication plan, I can do that. But imbibing into it the cultural nuances, which were pretty much there, right? Because India I knew, but other countries not. I think that was something which, you know, I didn't understand much well. And I think what I really did was I tried to then, through my own network of, friends, tried to find somebody who maybe had an experience working with those regions or countries, and tried to pick up,
Very nice.
few things.
Very
And I
nice.
think so instead of just going blank saying, Bas, I don't know that, I could at least, and I got some good insights and inputs, because those people, of course, had, been exposed to those countries and regions. So that was one example where, having actually zero knowledge, because I had no clue working outside of India, I could actually gain up, much foundational knowledge and go and present my communication plan, which by far I think, was pretty much accepted. And apart from, few other, I would say, changes and feedback which happened, feedback which was suggested, it by far, really, ran. So I felt good about it, that sometimes you may start from a point of zilch, but yeah, and that's what, one of the things I always tell people, that see, you can't be expert in everything,
Correct.
and don't even try to be. right? But always have friends and network whom you can rely upon, because everybody is, has some uniqueness or some strength, and try to really leverage on, that network, or group. And you should have, I always tell people, always have those networks both inside and outside the organization, right? And that always helps, right?
Very
And
nice.
genuine, I would say,
Very
uh,
powerful, Abhishek. So I'll again it raises a very interesting question that how to impress people. You mentioned that you have to be diligent so that people start trusting consistency, so that people start trusting you. And then maybe that could be one of the tools on how to create that network of people around that. But before that, see again on the point of overthinking. See, one, you look by God's grace, you look very young. So, exercising regularly, does that help in overthinking, meditation, or pranayam, or just a few short sentences on how people can control the habit of overthinking in today's scenario?
I think absolutely well said, and I think have a consistent regime of, you know training or exercising both your brain and body, I would
Very
say.
nice,
And it's not about the quantum of it, or how rigorously you do it, but I always say it's not about the rigor, it's about the consistency. Even if you spend 30 minutes, you say that, okay, I'll say every day do a light jogging for 30 minutes, be consistent about it without any excuses. You'll have days where you'll be heavily filled with work, right? And it can be easy excuse. But I think that is where your test comes, because you shouldn't let your time which you have for that physical jog go. So similarly, so basically, and I do that.
very nice,
I have 30 minutes of my time reserved for a brisk walk every day,
very nice,
mostly morning. Now, so the thing is, people may say that, hey, but how can you be so rigid? I say rigidity is not about, how to do it. Rigidity is about the objective. You have to do this 30 minutes. Flexibility can be that, maybe on some day you cannot do it in the morning because you had to catch an early morning flight, but make sure it's there in mind. You go to wherever place you are traveling, you finish your day, do it in the evening,
very
right?
nice,
You cannot go. I usually try. I'm a, nature person, so I usually try to, do it in outside. But maybe sometimes you cannot go to the gym in the hotel or wherever you are. But the important piece is the consistency of it. 30
very nice,
minutes and 30 minutes every day. Similarly, for your emotional strengthening, right? Give some time to read something, which is, every day a couple of pages of book. I'm not a very avid reader, I can tell you, right? But what I try to do is I every day try to at least spend maybe, 30 minutes or maybe less to at least read something very different, very new, right? So that gives a little, I think, exercise to my brain, my emotional senses, and the physical thing, to my, physical body. But yeah, the key thing is consistency
correct.
there.
Or it could be cooking. It could be just taking a for
Whatever.
emotional. It could be a hobby, guitar,
Yeah,
or whatever
whatever hobby you think, which basically distracts you
from the
from
work. Yeah,
your daily grind, right?
correct,
You
correct.
should get a break there. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
was very important for the young generation, Abhishek. But coming back to our discussion, so you mentioned that mentors is one thing, but mentors, like we discussed, that you have to impress the mentors in the earlier stage by hard work, by consistency, by diligence. But how to create that network of people around you, the support system who would help you, both internal as well as external? How can one create that?
So I think, yeah, there's some smart ways of doing. See, some people are, and I'll be very candid about it. Some people are very natural about it. Comes to them naturally. Some are not. I'm not. Okay, I'll be very candid. But I think the way it helps is, so think it this way, that, be useful to others also,
Very nice.
right? And it's only then you can expect others to be useful to you. So how can that happen? So suppose, I'm going through some article and I figure out that, this an article is about a particular industry. And I know there's a person in my network who is from, I just thought him, hey, I was going through this, and I remembered a few. Maybe you might find
Very
it
nice.
interesting to read. Small things, maybe there is you hear that there is something special, or maybe something, a weather calamity or something else happening in a particular location, and somebody is there. Just drop him a text message. Hey, I just saw this news. I hope all good with you and your friends and family. Right? I think for some, as I said, it comes naturally. For some, you have to really train yourself to consistently find those small micro opportunities to be useful to people in your network, right? So some of these kind of, examples. Maybe you are visiting a city where you think somebody is, just give the call. Hey, I'm here. I don't know if you'll have a chance, but I thought I'll give you a call if we can catch up over a coffee.
Very nice.
All thing. It and I mean everybody is busy. It may or may not materialize. But the very thing that you thought about the person, called him or her, had him or her in your thoughts, makes a huge difference. And that's where people see that, you really have them in your thoughts, you think about them, and they reciprocate when you need help.
Very nice. So, see, we also talked about during the starting of the discussion ability to put yourself in the shoes of operations because you started in operations, you were able to do that. And
Correct.
again, the ability, even at any level or in any department, but more so in HR, the ability to empathize and, like you mentioned, caring, being caring about other people. So, how does it help people in HR to rise faster or to anybody for that matter in any department? Empathy and caring nature. See, because see, I've worked in the corporate world for 15 years, and I
Mm,
have seen people who were more into individual glory, who were more into politics. I haven't seen them grow beyond the mid level, and they fall by the side because it's ultimately other people's support which makes you grow in life. It will be a very rare occasion where some very micromanager who's a top achiever will go on to rise to the very top now. Maybe earlier it was happening, but now I don't think it's very very rare. So some more thoughts on why to grow in your career it is important to be empathetic and caring, to put yourself
correct.
in the shoes of other people.
Yeah, no, you raised a very, very important question. I think, and particularly in today's environment where, and nothing against technology, nothing against AI, but I think with advent of technology, AI, somewhere I mean this question which keeps popping in, various forums or otherwise where see that are we losing human touch in the world of technology and AI? And I think we have to make every conscious effort that human touch cannot, I mean, technology cannot replace human touch.
Correct.
That empathy always has to be there, right? And and I think the important piece is that you can automate processes,
Correct.
you can bring in robots, right? Robotic process automation, all those things can happen, right? But end of the day, there are people behind either using that, consuming that technology, right? Who are consumers of that, or people who are the designers of that technology. They
Correct.
are people at the end of it, right?
Correct.
So do have those people in mind, and I think I always, and this debate keeps coming up, right? With how can we enhance productivity, with technology coming, which is about people, and to me, I think empathy is the thing about realizing that both technology and human can coexist. Yes, everybody has to do some modulation, which means as humans, we also need to realize that we need to upgrade ourselves,
Correct.
right? And no, but it can't be a question about this or that. So empathy has to be there about human touch, human connect, right? That's very important. But I think we also need to envision about coexisting in a world where technology will keep taking more and more deeper aspect, but for humans, it's about not really giving up to that, but it's about upgrading themselves, to things which are right of higher order, things like, decision making, things like creativity, things
Mhm.
like human touch. Technology cannot replace this. How can you strengthen in those areas? That will be the test of time for those who want to be successful in the world, which is now going to be increasing, which is already actually increasingly, I would say, infested with technology. It's about coexistence.
Correct. So decision making, again, this is such a powerful tool to have the ability to take the right decision. So how can one enhance one's ability to take the right decision? Again, see, we have talked about exercising, reading and giving our mind a rest so that we are fresh when we are thinking about something. But again, some more thoughts on how to enhance the ability to take decisions.
Yeah, so and I think so a good example of that could be that, ultimately decision making is a core human competence.
Correct.
What technology and machines can do is supplement that,
Correct.
right? And so the thing is, so for example, I'm just taking a random example, right? Suppose I have to present out what is the engineering early career landscape in India, right?
Mhm.
I have to present about that, right? There'll be and also about that, as an organization, what should be our strategy around tapping the early career talent pool. Suppose this is a problem statement given to me. I have to make a presentation. I think, first build out my thought as an individual. How will I go about tackling this problem? That involves thinking creativity on how I want to present it, because I know my audience. The technology doesn't know who my audience is. I know my context. Technology won't know, right? I
Correct.
build out how I want to go about it. There'll be certain pieces where I will take support and help from technology. Maybe I want to understand that, hey, how many institutions are there which provide talent in these functional areas. Give me, and I run maybe a chat GPT thing that, hey, give me in tier one cities, which are the colleges which run this course, what is their, annual output of, students, how many of them come with engineering background. I run my prompt, I get that data. That data will supplement what I
Correct.
am presenting. But I think the process flow, creativity of how I want to present, how I know my audience well, what will be things of their interest, that is my prerogative. And wherever I need inputs, whether it is technology or through my network, we bring in all resources together to supplement that. But I think I own the thought process, I own the creativity around that piece. And so I think that's what I would say, how
No,
it
that's
should.
very powerful. That's very powerful. And it is so relevant because nowadays everybody is seeking help of chat GPT.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is obviously we should take, but not at the expense of losing our ability to think.
Correct. And remember, ChatGPT also will be as effective depending on the prompt you give.
Correct.
That prompt is your brain power, your
Very
prerogative as
correct.
a
Very
human.
correct. Very correct. All right. So, see, in the starting, we also talked about, or to set the context, see, when I started my career in the late 90s, HR was looked at in a certain way as a support function. Cut to today. In today's scenario, HR is more or less a strategic function contributing to the business. So the ability of today's HR heads, CHROs to contribute to business by their enhanced skill of understanding business, understanding marketing, understanding operations, understanding sales, understanding legal requirement, financial requirement, the ability to read a balance sheet maybe. So how important is it for a young HR professional to be focused on business also? And business means operations, sales, and finance, at least these three pillars.
Absolutely foundational. everybody, and I think most of our youngsters who are coming into the workforce, it's very important to understand business. And I tell all of them that, whatever role you must be doing, you are in HR, you're in legal, you are in operations or whatever. But I think we all should fundamentally understand business. So, couple of things in business. So, one, how do we make money? How does our organization make money? Right? uh, who are our customers, who are our competitors, who are the partners we work with, who are the vendors we work with, right? And also importantly, what is our go-to-market strategy, right? I mean, are we B2B? Do we work with distributors, other channel partners and all that? And end of the day, I think very important to understand that in all this, whichever function I belong to, how do I add value? Where do I create impact? Right? So I think that will then have the individuals very firmly rooted in the larger vision of the organization, because they know that the organization exists for this reason. This is the service, this is the product, this is how they go to market, this is how they make money, this is how they make margins and profit. These are their partners. And in this entire thing, I think I create value in these pockets for us to be successful as an organization. You suddenly broaden your thought. You don't think about yourself doing some isolated work in organization without realizing how it is creating impact. People suddenly, I have seen people when they go deeper into this, they have a very profound impact on them, saying, hey, I never realized that what I'm doing, this is how it is impacting the business, this is how maybe it is impacting the end consumer as well,
Very nice.
right? So
Very nice.
yeah.
And this can combine with your ability to speak up. This can help the organization in the larger way. Whenever you see that some change is required or some process can be done better in some other department, and you have that trust by your consistent hard work, your diligence, maybe you can make a bigger impact. So,
Absolutely. When when you have understood the business, and when you then speak up and come with your suggestions, your business stakeholders respects you much more, because you are coming from a point of understanding the business and not just coming with your functional knowledge.
very nice. Would love to hear any example if you could remember, Abhishek, on this, where looking at your how HR as a strategic partner can help business.
Yeah, sure. I think, I can give you an example. See, as an organization, one of my organization, has been evolving into newer, I would say, work areas, right? And these are fundamentally, more into, software and product development side. And hence what was happening was we were of course going and hiring many of those individuals, those teams were building up, and we realized that some of our policies which earlier were standing good for us were no longer so relevant, right? And I think when I got back into that and realized, I think it took me and the team to first understand, what has changed in the business, which is really necessitating for us to, relook at the policies. And so did, quite a bit of, groundwork in terms of understanding, hey, how that part of the business works, right? What are the realities in the market? What does competition do, right? Getting all that data piece and then realizing that, okay, fundamentally, few fundamentals about this business are very different from maybe the existing one, and hence we need to relook at that. And so then when we went back to the business in suggesting certain recommendations about policies, having understood what are the nuances of this business, it was much more appreciated. And I think also they took much more interest in ownership, because they then realized that I'm coming from the point of from how this will impact business, rather than coming from a point of how I can change, why I want to change this policy.
Correct.
So the point was, why it makes sense for the business. So I think
Very
that's
nice.
one of the examples.
Very nice. Very good example, Abhishek. So, see, from a young HR professional's point of view, I have my own KRS, I have my own KPIs, I have my own tasks which I have to do. And then there is traffic in metros, pollution, so many other issues. How do I find time to learn more about finance, about sales, about operations? How do I do that?
See, nowadays, couple of things. One, within your ecosystem in the organization, you may always find that buddy who can actually demystify things for you,
Very nice.
who can explain to you maybe things which otherwise seem complex in very, simplified terms. Try to find those people, make friends with
Very
them.
nice. Very nice.
I mean, in a genuine way, right? That's one. Second, I think, also complement with a lot of those learning opportunities which are there in many of their learning platforms that are available in the market. I mean, and most organizations, by the way, nowadays provide them to their employees. I
Correct.
think go and utilize these resources. I always feel that we are not doing enough of it. I mean, imagine the organization is making us available all these resources, right? Go and find a course which is best. So I think it's a complement of doing some of those courses, online courses, right, and complementing that with maybe, as I said, some buddies or friends who are knowledgeable in that area. I think it's a combination of both. I think which will help, because otherwise course sometimes can become very bookish kind of stuff, but you complement with it somebody with the knowledge of somebody who's an expert, you will actually start making much more sense and much more clarity.
Very nice. So, see, in this discussion, we have talked about so many secrets of success. Abhishek, we have talked about that there is no hard shortcut to success. There is hard work is paramount. We have talked about diligence, discipline, consistency, which builds in trust, ability to speak up, and then baptism by fire so that we enhance our learning. We have talked about mentors, the leaders who help you, who guide you, about taking ability to take risk, about open to feedback, letting go of fear of failure, and then navigating, knowing how to navigate politics, to do your homework before you do that, having that networking skills, having that social support system, and ability to let go of overthinking. What else? Anything else you would like to add to as the secret of success, which will help the young HR professionals or young professionals in any department?
So yeah, I think you pretty well captured all that talk. Maybe one thing is, sometimes you have to take a step back
Oh, very nice.
to be good in the long run, right? I mean, you realize that you have gone ahead and realize maybe you need to step back. Maybe this is not the right direction, or maybe there were other options which you never considered. Step back. Always have, again, it's about courage. Always have that courage and conviction. If you realize at some point of time you have to step back, right? Have a fresh look at things, right? Maybe have a fresh look from somebody else's eyes, right? Bounce them. Maybe you are completely blinded to some part of, the problem or whatever you're trying to work on, and you connect and speak to someone. He gives a very different perspective. So I think stepping back sometimes is good in the long run.
Very nice. Would you like to give any example on this, Abhishek?
Uh, yeah, I can actually, give an example. So,
So anything I am asking you, you have ready examples. So this is again such a big learning that you have to go through all these experiences in life to reach the top. Yes, please go on.
yeah, but you are taking me down the memory lane, so which is so good. Yeah, so I think, stepping back, and I'll tell you, in my career, at one point of time, I took a career move, right? And I was, excited about that because it was giving me exposure into, newer geographies, right, primarily. And, but what I didn't anticipate, it was actually disturbing my own ecosystem quite. There were many variables which were getting disturbed right now. So things like I was moving to a new city, I had, a young child, right, which needed caretaking. I was moving to a place where I did not have my support system. The new role required me to travel quite a bit, right? Now, some of these variables I had not really anticipated and thought through, right? And I realized that, after some time, it's not becoming sustainable to me. I tried, of course, and I could have continued, but I realized that maybe it was something which I did not fully think through. And maybe it's time for me to kind of, step back and have a real look. And I did that. I stepped back, moved into, a different role, which I thought, might really, at that juncture, be fit for where in what life stage. But so that was big thing. It was my own personal thing, and I realized that sometimes you do things in life, and otherwise you realize that you didn't fully think through or didn't really. There were certain aspects which you are blinded to. So that was my own personal, very personal example.
Very nice. Thanks for being so candid, Abhishek. See, we have almost been talking for more than an hour now, but very quickly. So, some suggestions or guidance or thoughts for people at mid level.
Yeah. So I think people at mid level sometimes we get complacent, I see, right? We've been doing things, we get, hey, why do disturb when things are going fine? But I think complacency can sometimes, be a barrier to your growth. So if you start thinking you're getting complacent, try to, jolt yourself, and jolting means that, try to stretch yourself, exert yourself into newer areas, maybe take some risks, right? And so stretching, taking some risks will actually, two things will happen. One, of course, you will get exposed to something new. Second, I think, it will really also expose you to maybe newer networks and what leads to what connections you never know.
Correct.
Right. So I think for people in media, a lot of times seen that, complacency is one thing, which comes in. Second piece is also sometimes to introspect,
Hmm.
right? Maybe your calling on long term is somewhere, but you are stuck there for circumstances, for reasons maybe which happened, maybe not in your control, but you intend to do something else. Your passion lies somewhere else, right? Try to seek your inner heart, what you are passionate, and try to see how you can steer yourself towards that. Take help, as I always say, that take help from mentors, from friends, from buddies, right? People whom you can genuinely trust on to get a lot of advice. So some of these things I think are advices for people in mid career, I would say.
Last question. People at senior level, we have gone beyond 1 hour, but again, the last question. So, people at senior levels, what advice would you like to give them?
I think people at senior level, and assuming most of them are at leadership levels, I would say it's about humility,
Very
right?
nice.
Uh, a leader who is humble is well respected.
Correct.
I have grown around leaders who have been so humble, that that absolutely helped me gain. I mean, I gained, or got their respect, or they got my respect, right? That's one. Second is, I think, as I said earlier, also always look at developing the talent
Young
pool.
talent. Correct.
As leaders, that's what we have to do, because as we step maybe we retire, or move into other things, we should leave a very strong legacy, right?
Correct.
And third, I would say, is always about be open and available to people. People shouldn't see you sitting in an ivory tower. And I think be always open, approachable, right? And making sure that, you are mentoring as many people as you can, right? Because
Very
that's
nice.
again, you are creating the future of talent. You are leaving a legacy behind.
Very nice. So thank you, Abhishek. It has been a pleasure, a real pleasure talking to you. And we have crossed, maybe we have been talking for more than 5-10 minutes beyond the 1 hour schedule, but we have to stick to the timelines. Otherwise, we can go on talking. So thank you so much, Abhishek. Thanks for giving us
No,
time.
absolutely pleasure, Amit. Thanks for inviting me in. And I think it was, and as I said, it just went on as a conversation. And that's why, it just kept going. And I didn't even realize it's an hour that we have been talking.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Abhishek.